we're gonna have to have sex for no. If both of you are comfortable with the amount of sex you have,
then great.
Then great. Hey, what's going on? It's your man Cas
and Bell,
and we're here for another Divorce Not an Option, the podcast and video blog that we talk about relationships with our 22 years of experience. So, what are we talking about this one, babe?
Well, today I believe we're going to talk about sex and and marriage.
Oh yeah,
right?
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your favorite topic.
My favorite topic in the whole wide world. Sex and marriage.
Yep.
For one, let me establish this, okay? Let's get to the chase, okay? Sex. Oh, we're gonna have to have sex for no. If both of you are comfortable with the amount of sex you have,
then great.
Then great. If once a week is happy for you,
then great.
I don't know how happy. I mean, it gotta be every other day. Every day.
Fly.
You know what I'm saying? It's been 20-something years and it's almost every day. I'm in it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, of course, if it's medical problems, sickness, all that stuff. So no. But in general, if you are comfortable with the amount of sex you have and you're happy, then fine.
That's fine.
That's
you're
fine.
doing a great job.
Then you're doing a great job. So this is not here to tell you should have sex every single day or your marriage is messed up. No. But just because you don't have it every day don't mean it's not important. You know what I'm saying? For y'all, twice a week is great. You know what I'm saying? If that's great for y'all, then yeah, but that's it. But that means it's important. It's important that we get at least twice a week because that is what we like.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by important. Not, you don't gotta be like us. You know what I'm saying? But in general, and also intimacy is,
it's not necessarily sex.
It's not necessarily sex.
Encounter.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand like the intimacy part. Like if you have intimacy, but maybe you have the physical sex, not as much, but the intimacy is good and all that, then hey, that's great.
That
is phenomenal.
priority.
You're prioritizing your intimacy with your spouse. And that's what's important.
Yep.
But you know what I'm saying? But I'll let you speak. I just wanted to get that stuff out there early. Because people be in the inbox like,
Yeah. No, and then I completely agree with that. I mean, sex is not always the act, right? Sexual intimacy. And what's very important a lot of times too with, couples and such is the, intimacy part that is sometimes missing, the sensual, maybe you give each other, massages, and if you want to reward little, throw in some erotic massage in there. And if you don't know what I mean by that, then Google
this is not that type of show.
Exactly.
Don't be telling me your secrets, baby.
Not? Okay.
Don't be telling me your secrets, baby. That's for me.
The women.
Okay.
All right, y'all. So I'm just saying, just if you want to throw on those like a special little thing here and there, But I mean, holding hands or talking, putting the cell phones away, just having, a walk in the park or wherever. I mean, that's what's part of intimacy. It's not always like the sexual act that you have to bang, 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 right? It's just the foreplay, without the bang, bang, bang.
Like every night before I go to sleep, I rub her butt.
Yes.
Every night. Every single night I rub her butt.
Every single night.
You know what I'm saying? Because I want her to know she's sexy, she's beautiful, and I want her all the time. You know what I'm saying? And that's what sex is really about. Is you showing, I mean, of course, there's a physical need.
Yes.
Especially for men, there's a physical need. But there's also that mental, emotional need. That connection you have to have where woman wants to know, from my standpoint, she wants to know that her man thinks she's beautiful and she's still attractive. A man wants to feel needed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the only thing you fantasize, but you want this big daddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want that connection with the other person, And I think what we tend to do is we put, now, of course, we're on the podcast now talking, whatever. But in general, people put their business out so much out there when it comes to their intimacy. And that's between you and your partner. Like, I mean, to be honest, I always say all the time, people meet my wife, she's mad prissy, she's AK, if you know, stereotypical AK, she acts like that, And I know, in my head, I'm always like, guys are like, damn, she ain't getting no good D, blah, blah, blah. Because, when you see them women, you're like, oh, yeah, but trust me, my wife and me, we get down dirty. We get it on. We do a lot of things.
Putting our business out there.
I'm not putting specifics. I'm just saying, like, we do what we need to do. It's cool. It's shit. You know what I'm saying? But I think the thing is, whatever you decide to do is between y'all. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at your intimacy as what my man like, what my woman likes. You know what I'm saying? And you need to come together on what you like. If that's what you like, enjoy it together. Do it. Don't care about nobody else. You know what I'm saying? There are so many people out there doing a whole bunch of different alternative lifestyles and this and swinging and poly and BDSM and all this stuff. If that's what you into, that's what you into. Do it. Have a good time with it, because that is you and your wife. Don't let nobody else tell you what you should be doing. I think the only, I believe our last podcast we talked about religion, and I think, and we didn't talk about intimacy and religion and stuff like that.
No, we did not.
I think the only bad thing about religious sex, as they say, is that it has a lot of these rules.
Well, does it have to though?
Well, I know. Well, see, this is the thing. Socially, it has rules, but when you look into the Bible, it says what a man and woman decide to do in their bed is between them, right?
Right.
Now, how I read that's interpretation. You want to bring toys, you want to do some nasty stuff, other people's, whatever. If it's your bed, whatever you want to do in your bed, do it in your bed. That's your business. See, and I think when people get into religion, they have this idea that sex has to be a certain way. I've heard of religions where they can only have missionary sex, or they don't do missionary sex.
I know. What?
That's it. Or oral sex is not done. I saw a pastor, I think Muslims or some religion talk about oral sex is not.
They do not do oral sex.
You can't do oral sex and stuff like that.
Even a Jewish community, I believe, I think it's the, it's a certain type of Jewish where they actually don't have sex for 2 weeks out of a month. So it's usually during the menstrual, and then afterwards. So for 2 weeks, they abstain from any sexual.
Yeah, because I believe in Christianity, there's kind of like there's a contradiction. On one hand, it says sex is for reproduction, right? But then you have the line, whatever a man and woman does is best between them. Or a woman should submit to a man sexually anytime. And you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of contradiction. And I think people in religions, they take out these things and they harper on those things only. But in general, whatever makes you happy and turns you on, indulge and do it. Because at the end of the day, it is your relationship. And whatever y'all want to do, like, I respect people, like, like I said, I'm not pro LGBTQ community, but I respect them living out their truth.
They live out their life.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Live your truth the way you want to live it. Just because I may not agree with it or others may not agree with it or whoever, you know what I'm saying? That's fine. But I appreciate the fact that they live their truth and they're loving who they want to love in the fashion they want to do it. And see, I admire that and respect that. You know what I'm saying? Now, that's not a life for me. You know what I'm saying? So, it's not me, but I could respect that. And, and in our marriage, I believe sexuality, whatever you want to do within that covenant, is between y'all. And nobody has the right to judge you or tell you what you should do in that situation. Because at the end of the day, I don't like the hypocrites, right? In Florida, particularly in Florida, we had this woman that was an advocate for children and books and decency and stuff like that. And she was advocating for it, like, oh, you need to be decent. She had this model marriage, right? Come to find out, they were having threesomes and foursomes all the time. Now, I ain't mad at that. If that's what you want to do, have fun, do your thing. But don't sit there and judge others and be judgmental. It's like the politicians that are anti-gay, but they get caught in the office, getting caught by the intern, getting sucked off by the intern. Like at the end of the day, I think people's sexual preferences, sexual life should be private. It should be personal. You know what I'm saying? Because that is a very intimate, personal thing. You know what I mean? Don't sit here and contemplate on, how others feel about it, because that should be private. You know what I'm saying? That should be what you and your husband, you and your wife do together for your gratification. Now the intimacy, all that, it has to do with all of that. It's whatever y'all want to do. Y'all may be into the BDSM, and BDSM is not about sex. It's about sensory play, control, bondage, all that stuff. Yeah, my wife is a little BDSM. Let's not talk about that. But anyway, so it's about that, right? So it may not be a lot of sex going on, physical, because that's not what it's really about. But that is intimacy. That is connection. And if you're a couple that's into that, shit, you may like to come in the room and your wife is hanging from ropes. Or you want your husband to be handcuffed with a bowl in his mouth and you tell him to bark. He says, that's your intimacy. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that, but I'm just saying. Maybe she wants to do that to me, but you know what I'm saying? But that's your intimacy. You know what I'm saying? That's what y'all do. And that's fine. Make that a priority in your life. If you're swingers, y'all go out there to the different clubs and y'all want to have a good time with other. That's what y'all do. Indulge in it, have a good time. That doesn't make you a bad person. That is just what y'all do. I think so many times in relationships, people don't allow others to be who they are sexually. And that don't mean gay or lesbian, but just in general, like, I want to try this, I want to do that. They're so scared of admitting, I want to try these things or do these things, that they suppress themselves, and it comes out in different ways.
Yeah, but it's good that you bring that up, because, maybe could just take it a little bit back and talk about, that's the whole point of having discussions and having, what you all like to have your sexual experience to be as a couple, having those type of discussions, because not a lot of people are talking about sexual intimacies or what they're looking for. I mean, we talk about, everything else, like, if you want to have kids, or how you would want to raise the kids, or where you want to live, if you want to, purchase a house or wait, or your family dynamics. But we don't sit there and talk about sex. I mean, for us, just like you probably think that, they have the perfect life, perfect. No, we actually don't. We could take it way back to when we first got married and everything. I think in our one of our podcasts, not video podcasts, but one of our podcasts, we really delved into that much deeper, as far as our first years of marriage, and and the lack of sex, and how it made him feel, and how it how it made me feel, and how both of us are to blame for that, and how we kind of work and still working towards that. To
sum it up, I think when we were dating, we were like buddies. Before I was with her, I was Casanova. I was out there, I was doing my thing, and I had a very high sex drive, more. Yeah. And then when I met her, it was the first time that I was satisfied fully sexually. I didn't even want another woman. And it wasn't that, it was like the phenomenal, nasty, freaky sex type stuff, but it was the connection we have plus the sex, you know what I'm saying? That really made it, because, me, I like the particular type of woman. I like big butt, he likes big titty, thick big, girl, you know what I'm saying? I was into that, you know what I'm saying? But she was like 104 pounds wet.
Well, I was 108, all right?
Little booties, little booty.
Why you gotta be saying that? Little booty, little.
I mean, she good now after our 2 kids. I'm fine. You see all that. But, but when we got together, so it made me focus more on getting to know her, because sexually I wasn't like, come back. I was like, she's cool. No, I'll hurt that little girl. I was like, I'm gonna hurt that little girl. I'm gonna hurt that, because I'm used to,
Really?
So I got to know her. And then when we had sex, it wasn't just sex. It was like a real closeness we had. You know what I'm saying? Was it the best in the beginning? Let's not even talk about
Why
that.
You gotta put my business out there?
I was experienced. She wasn't.
Really?
But
Why you gotta put it out there?
But at the end of the day, it was a connection. It was a great connection we had, and it was beautiful. And it got to the point where I didn't even want nobody. I just wanted her. So everything was fine. But then we got married. It all changed.
Yep.
Our honeymoon, we didn't have a lot of sex, and I just blew it off too. Hey, we were tired from the wedding and everything that went on. But then it kept going week after week after week. We weren't having sex. Maybe we were having sex here and there. The sex wasn't even the same when we did have it. And it was really, we grew apart for the first 6 months. Yep. And I started to get back to my old ways, flirting and being out there. She was just chilling and all that. I wasn't in the streets like that, but I was in the music business at the point. So, I was just, doing me. And she was out hanging out with her friends and stuff like that. We grew apart because the intimacy wasn't there how it was. Now, she was going going through her own stuff that she'll talk about, and I was going through my stuff as well. You know, I didn't see successful marriages. I didn't see none of that. So I didn't know how to navigate well. I didn't know how to, hey, let's fix this. I was just like, I guess this is it. Boom, whatever. You know, it didn't work out, whatever. But then what happened was she did get pregnant, and it was like, all right, cool. She pregnant, cool. I'm not leaving. You know, let's work this out, whatever. But wasn't really serious about it. But then, you know, I was just being a fool and still doing what I do. And then we got into a real big incident happened, and we got into a real big argument, and she almost miscarried. You know, we had to rush her to the hospital. She was bleeding, and you know, the doctor said she almost miscarried, and that really opened my eyes to things because, you know, my son's 17 right now, and to imagine him not in my life, that almost was not there because of my foolishness or my lack of understanding or trying to make things work at that time. You know what I'm saying? It devastates me to even think about that. But, you know, even after that, you know, we still had a lot of growing to do. It took a few years for us to really get back to where we were intimacy wise. But, you know, with that said, that opened our eyes. So, you know, we're not speaking on like trying to judge people. We went through our own intimacy problems and stuff like that. And I think even to this day, we still have problems, and not like major. I think everybody got problems in marriage. You know what I'm saying? Time, not enough. Just regular stuff. It's nothing major right now. I'm completely satisfied. But at the end of the day, I think we had to understand each other, understand our needs. Because when you're dating, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're dating, it's like fun. It's exciting.
Yeah,
you know,
stress-free.
You're stress-free. There's no commitment as far as like in your mind. You're not bogged down by, oh, am I doing this right? Or, you know, it's like, hey.
Yeah,
but then when you
fun.
in a marriage, though, you know, who we were when we were 20, 30, and 40 is different. Things change.
Yep.
And now you have to reincorporate that. And that goes back to, you have to define what your intimacy is like. Whatever y'all want to do, explore, dabble in, whatever, y'all do it for y'all. Because what happens in marriage, and I'll let you speak upon this as well once I finish the statement. People tend not, and you said this before, people tend not to talk about marriage, about sex and intimacy. And if they do talk about it, they're not honest with the other person about what they want.
Right.
And there's two sides. There's the side of, I may want this, but I'm not going to say nothing. And the other side is the insecurity. Well, if I do all that stuff, would you still want me? If I'm too freaky, or if I want to do these things, or I want to think about these things, will you still want me, or stuff like that? So that's why the communication has to be there, because it has to be established that whatever we're talking about to do, whatever our likes are, whatever our needs are, we're on this journey together. And it's not about somebody else wanting something else, or you not satisfying me. It's about our journey, intimacy, and sexual adventures together.
Yeah. Yes. And that is, you know, and I'll, you know, take it back to, again, when we were first, you know, of course, dating, and then, you know, getting married. And, you know, I mean, in my head, when we first got married, what I was going through is, you know, it was a shock factor, because, you know, I've never wanted to get married. Like I say, some women always dream of the white dress and, you know, the princess. I wasn't one of them.
She did tell us me the first date. Don't get me wrong. You know, just to interject, the first day we went out, she did look me dead in my eyes, and I remember it's like it was yesterday. She said, "I don't want no kids. I don't want to get married. I want to be the fun auntie."
Yes, exactly. I want to be the fun rich auntie. I wish I could have been the fun rich auntie, because, you know, but now I can't.
So now we live. Now you're saying that you regret. Oh, wow. See, people?
No.
You just saw a marriage get ruined right now, live.
No, but anywho, I mean, you know, but that, I never saw that life for me, even though I grew up and, you know, my parents are married and, you know, and such. And so I just never, you know, wanted any part of that life. And it's just that I've always wanted to be an independent, you know, a free thinker out there, just, you know, carefree, living my life, being a serial dater as I was.
She's all of that except a serial dater.
Anyways, you know, so that's what I was, a serial dater. What are you talking
No, I said you was all of that, and you're all that now.
Oh, now?
Except the serial dater.
Oh, Well, okay,
Well,
we could talk
who
about
you dating?
that. No, I'm talking about
No,
that.
who you dating? No. We finding something out live now. See, y'all seeing the ruin of a marriage right now. We're going to change this podcast from sex and intimacy to how a marriage goes down.
Anyways, no. So no, I say well because, I'm like, well, as far as, I was going to bring it back to some women where women say they cannot be themselves in a marriage. And so that's what I was going to say. Well, see, you can, okay. But anyway.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, yeah.
But anyways, so again, it was a lot of that going through my mind. And again, I was, not to say an excuse, but I mean, I was young too. I say got married at 20, I was 25, but yeah, so there was a lot of those things going through my head. And then, I was working. I was also, going through my master's program too. So there was a lot going on.
Wait, you got your master's when we were together, Molly. We were married when you got your master's.
Yeah,
we were in this house and married.
No, I was we were in the apartment.
Yeah, you're right. You were in the apartment. You're right. Sorry, you're right.
You interrupted my story.
I'm sorry.
My truth?
Yeah. You're sorry.
You
Tell your
people,
truth.
You see people.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Tell your truth. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, I was working full time, then going to school at night. This is where you had to go into the campus. I wasn't going online. I mean, it was a lot, but like I said, none of that is excuse, but just to kind of show you how we evolve over time. But that did cause a lot of friction, and I was going out a lot. I mean, I was even 4 months pregnant because 5 months where I wasn't even showing, and I was still at the club. So I mean, because I was a party girl. So I'm just saying, there, how to show how we evolve. So yes, I did, drop the ball, and I'm not gonna lie, I did drop the ball on our sexual intimacy, and we didn't have the conversations of how we had a lot of arguments. You're not giving me any sex, and and you're not showing me you want me, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this, spending all, and there's also a lot. We started a new business as well. I mean, there was a lot going on. But not to excuse any of that, just to kind of show you guys that we've experienced all of that, so we understand and we know. And like you say, we evolve over the years as you grow and you learn more things. You kind of learn how to communicate with each other better. You learn how to, satisfy each other's needs better. But all that is by going through stuff and talking about it. So if we kind of still avoid and not have that discussion, yeah, we would end up in divorce court for sure. So the goal is we didn't give up. And I think that's the main thing I want to horn at. We didn't give up, and we decided that we love each other enough to want to make it work and to sit down and kind of talk about why.
Because I think also too, when it comes to intimacy and sexuality and stuff in relationships, you have to sit down and have an honest conversation about what you want without the other person being offended. I think that thing they're doing right now, we listen and we don't judge. That's bullshit. I mean, that they are judging. But the message is true. When you love somebody, you should be able to sit down and actually allow them to express how they feel. You know what I'm saying? One of the things I had to understand is if you could have a person with a very high sex drive, you could have a person with very low sex drive. And you have to find a happy medium because, now one thing I could honestly say, and this is the truth on our children or anything, there hasn't been one time in our marriage that my wife has turned me down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even when we were going through, I just wasn't asking for it. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't happening. I was just like, okay, well.
We were still having sex. Some people
we weren't having sex like
just not free.
Like we were.
Yeah,
like when we were dating.
Like we were.
Because obviously she got pregnant, so yeah.
Yeah, not 3-4 times a day.
Yeah, we weren't doing it like we were. Like when we were dating, it was like buddies. But then when we got married, it got routine.
Yes.
Let's put it like that. Let's not say
one time a day.
Yeah, like once a week or something like that. It wasn't
once a week.
Yeah, it was like once or twice a week, and it wasn't even exciting. It was like, all right, we did it, cool. Yeah. Okay. And I guess we were doing it to say we did it rather than we wanted each other and we were intimate with each other. It was just like, all right, we did it. You know what I'm saying? So maybe exaggerate, like we had sex, but we just didn't have it like we used to. It changed. The dynamics changed.
Yeah, the dynamics.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what's. But when you have to understand, you have to have a real conversation, because what we tend to do is we look at things through our lens, right? I had to understand that my wife's sexual needs were completely different than mine. And that had nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? When we were in our 20s and we didn't have important job and kids and responsibility, we had all the time in the world to just do it, So on her end, it's like, okay, shit, let's have sex, I may not be into it, but you know what? You my man and let's go. It's fun, But when you have a job, when you have kids, you have a life and all, when you get when you get some time, you just want to relax. And if you're not a highly sexual person, sex is not the I want to chill activity. You know what I'm saying? So I had to understand that, okay, my wife does a lot. And at the end of the day, the type of sex I want, the frequency, is it reality for her reality? You know what I'm saying? Because not that she wouldn't give it to me, but it's like, she wants to rest. She wants to have some breakdown time, some relaxed time, some time to herself to, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff. So I had to understand, like, okay, I may want it all the time, but pick the right times. You know what I'm saying? Or make it a better situation where it's just not, I'm gonna hop on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different now. You know what I'm saying? I had to understand that about her. Just like she had to understand my needs and what I wanted, how my sexual ideas have changed and how I want to do some more things, try some things, all that stuff. So, and then with that, I had to learn too, like, okay, cool. If we do these things, cool. No problem. Let's do it in moderation. Let's, okay, if I want the full body massage, it ain't gonna be every night. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be, so we had to come to some understanding of each other. And I don't want to say compromise because I don't want to feel like one person's losing on the other in that. I just felt we had to come to an understanding of our
happy
needs.
Medium.
And we're like, all right, cool. This is what we do. This is what we could do. And I think that's what marriage need to do. You need to you can't be afraid to have that real conversation, that true conversation. One of I know a lot of people that are in different lifestyles, our friends and stuff like that do crazy stuff. And one of the things is this particular swinger couple, that's what they do. They indulge in that. And one of the things they said, like, before they were they were in that lifestyle, they argued a lot. They had a lot of fights about intimacy and stuff like that. And what was happening, they were afraid to tell each other that they weren't satisfied with their sexual life. Meaning that it's not that they weren't satisfied with the other person, is that they wanted more. And they wanted to do that with their spouse more. They wanted to explore and push the limits or whatever. And until they had that real conversation, they were trapped. But once they had that conversation, it was the best thing for their marriage. This is a couple that were together for like 20 something years before they even decided to do that. They were very, they call it vanilla. You know what I'm saying? They call it vanilla. You know what I'm saying? Where you just, yeah, they were very vanilla. Right. But then when they actually, talk to each other and start to explore these different things, their relationship took another level. But see, that made them communicate more. That made them understand each other's needs more. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a swinger for that. That's not what I'm saying. But in general, you can't be afraid to have that honest conversation.
Open-minded with each other's wants and needs. You have to, but then again, you also have to make an environment to be an open-minded and discuss. Because if your spouse is someone that will not open that door for you, or they're, it's uncomfortable to talk to them, then you need to seek counseling, and that's to help them kind of, not be more open-minded, but just be someone that you can talk to and share that type of intimacy and desire, wants, and with them.
What I see happening right now is a lot of women and men as well, but mostly women that I see on online, is that they are so afraid of their man going to somebody else, but they're not taking care of themselves. A lot of these men that, I'm not saying cheating is right, so I in no way am I condoning it or co-signing it. What I'm saying though, but when a man goes out and cheats for needs, a lot of the times it's not because he's a dog in a sense. It's because his wife or his woman isn't giving him none, and he's trying to get some intimacy, and she has conditions meaning, oh, you don't take me out enough, you don't do this enough, you don't do that enough. See, and that's what I meant by earlier. Sex isn't a reward. Sex should be part of your thing. You should be concerned about your spouse's sexual needs, especially for a man. See, biology wise, let's get a little bit of science in. Sex is different for men and women. For women, it's not biological need. You know what I'm saying? It's more biological need for them to do it, to have kids. Women have that in them where I want to have sex to have a kid. That's the biological need. But for men, it's a biological need. You know, I said this to you before. Women don't, sleep when they're young and wake up and they came all over themselves. Their body just naturally ejaculated, or they just had a orgasm sleeping. That doesn't happen to a woman. You know what I'm saying? A man, a young man that don't even know about sex or any of that will have spontaneous wet dreams and ejaculate because it's a natural body need for a man. And I think sometimes women don't understand that. I think the relationship in general doesn't understand. I think some men don't understand that it's a biological need for you to have sex. You know what I'm saying? They suppress themselves so much. And then what happens is when you suppress yourself in one way, it comes out negative in another.
Yeah, and it does. And so that's what I'm saying. That's why you have to have an environment to be able to talk to each other about that. Men too. Some men feel like they can't talk to their wife, about their intimacy and sexual needs because they feel like maybe they'll be judged, or maybe the wife, is so uptight that, she won't do what, maybe he wants you to, I don't know, dress up as a dominatrix or something.
And also too, another thing about guys, a lot of guys don't understand too that if you're honest with your woman, you can get those things you want. There's a lot of women out here that are doing threesomes and they interested in that life and all that stuff. And because I know a lot of women that have said, if my man would have asked me to do it instead of cheating, we could have went out there and got these women ourselves.
Yeah, I think you just have to be
a lot of men don't want to talk to their woman about those type of needs, or hey baby, let's have fun in bed, let's do this, because a lot of women are into that stuff, but they try, and this is defending women, but a lot of women suppress themselves for their man because they meet a man, he's a good man and all that. They may want to do these freaky stuff, but they're scared because that's not him, and then they don't. But then secretly the man wants that, but he'd rather go out there and cheat than just talk to his woman and say, baby, let's go out here and get these women. She's like, shit, let's go, babe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too is maybe conditioned based on how, we were raised and in our atmosphere and everything too. Because, a lot of men, I will say, they're very, and again, from conversations with our friends and stuff, they're very rigid in their thinking when it comes to sex. It's like they rather have the side chicks, and be like, the side chicks got to do all of this, but they won't ask their wife to be the side chick.
Well, I think because for a man, we look at our woman as the wholesome.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And they're conditioned that way. But so that's why some women don't feel like they can talk to them about, maybe they do want to be the side chick. I'm talking about for their husband. They want to be the side chick for their husband and do all kinds of stuff. But if you don't
my
talk
side chick,
to
baby?
them, of course I'm your side chick.
Yeah, she my side chick. Oh, yeah.
But so of course they have to talk to them, and they have to have that comfortability in their relationship in order. And a lot of times, unfortunately, they're not comfortable, whether it's how you grew up, your background, your family dynamics, your friends, church. Religion plays a big role, and but y'all out here cheating all day, every day, but can't sit here and have a conversation with each other, about what you really want. So I think everybody always want to clutch their pearls when it comes to talking about sex. And like I said, and I was always an open-minded person. You can say I was never that wife that's like, oh no. It's just that we had issues with the frequency and the, wanting and stuff where, it took us some time to kind of learn and discover and talk about all of that.
Yeah. And, it's definitely just to wrap it up, because I know we're at time. I reiterate what I said earlier. I think is very important. Have that discussion with your spouse on what they like and what they want.
Yep.
Understand that you're not the mother to your husband.
Yeah.
You're not the father to your wife. just because you are a mother and a husband doesn't mean you're not each other's companion. Meaning you can't, because some people sometimes they get to a certain point in their life, they think, oh, I'm a mother now, I'm a father now, I'm a this now, so I can't do. No, you're not. When it comes to your husband and your wife, you are there for them, they're there for you. And you need to talk about what needs you have for each other. And be honest with each other. Don't judge each other. Be honest. Like, oh, you really want to do that, babe? You into that? Like, be honest with each other and embrace it. Because at the end of the day, as long as that person wants to do it, try whatever with you. You know, if they want to, do the BDS with you, if they want to try threesomes with you, not saying, oh, I want to have sex with another girl, not saying, not without you, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, baby, I want us to do this. If your wife is like, baby, I want to do this, whatever, like, listen to them and be open-minded to them. Now, if it's something you were just against, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, because some people are, they're
just
morally, struggle.
But allow the person to have the floor to even speak it.
Yes.
Because sometimes just them being able to talk to you about it is all they need.
It's all they need.
It's like,
just to share.
I know you're not into this, but this is things I'm thinking.
Just to share.
And
Maybe
you're like, that's crazy, baby. That's crazy. Like, I'm not into that,
Maybe
baby.
That's an extra reward.
That's crazy, but just have and it goes to be like best friends. Like, I talk to you about it. You may think it's crazy, but at least I feel comfortable able to talk to you about it. You never know. You may, that person may say,
that's what I'm saying.
I don't like it, but maybe we'll try it one time. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, women, you have to feel great when your man comes to you about that stuff. Because the thing is, men have a lot of opportunity out here now. And if your man is coming to you to say, baby, I want to try this with you, I want to do this, I want to incorporate this, whatever, then feel really good that your man came to you to talk to you about it. You know what I'm saying? And men, feel good your woman come talk. Don't be so close-minded. If your woman comes say, baby, I want to spank you or whatever, I know, something next level, like talk to her about, be open about it. You know what I'm saying? Give her the space to allow for her to have that conversation with you without you necessarily judge her. You may ultimately say no, like, nah, baby, I ain't into spanking.
Yeah, but at least,
you know what I'm saying? But at least she's able to talk.
Yeah, you appreciate the fact that, she is coming to you. She's, she feels safe enough with you as her spouse to share that, what she wants. And again, maybe you may surprise her and let her do it one day, I don't know.
Whatever it is.
But at least, you got to share it. And I will say one last thing. I know some people will say, well, I do all that and some, and they still cheat, both parties regardless. But more women will say, and the men still go out there and have side chicks and stuff. That's a whole different problem on its own, and you just need to seek counseling and how y'all gonna navigate that. But that's a whole separate thing. If they're still out here cheating, then
it's a relationship problem, not a sexual problem.
Survive.
See, because I think, because like you said, people tend to do that. Women be like, oh well, you could do all that. Because what they do is they use an excuse not to do it. Well, I used to do all that, and he's still cheating. But see, the problem wasn't you. And then they get into the next relationship. Well, I'm not gonna do it because the last relationship you didn't have a problem with sexual. You
didn't have a sexual intimacy
and sex problem. No, you had a relationship, problem. Your man was just a dog. Your man just didn't want a relationship.
He didn't want to be.
But that had nothing to do with, you could do all the tricks in the world, but if he don't want to be with you, he's gonna do what he gotta do. So that's not a problem of you doing all. It's a problem that you just have a man that's a cheater. So that's a different story. I'm talking about when you're in a relationship, a committed relationship with somebody you love. You have to make the intimacy and the sexual part of the relationship priority, and don't sit there and ever think, oh well, I did this before. So no, your relationship with him is different. Move accountably. Do what you want to do. Quote the Bible one last time: whatever a man and woman do in their bed is between them. So handle it like that. So I think we're ending on that, right?
I think so.
I appreciate everybody. We appreciate everybody who's been checking us out, been listening, been hitting us up. We appreciate it.
You guys.
Thanks for everybody picking up the book. I'm selling a lot. I appreciate you. Men are meant to be broken. We got the orders going out for the product line, culture.skin. Also, the big thing, the couple of critics. We appreciate you going to the page, seeing the reviews.
Yes, thank you.
We're doing a lot with that as well. But we appreciate everybody that's been supporting us and showing us love. Okay, guys? Until next time.